I'm Christian, and welcome to the Jenoir Leadership podcast, a show where we talk about effective collaboration, influence, and leadership in an increasingly complex world. My interview partner is Dr. Dirk Schlimm. Dirk is an international leadership expert and the author of Influencing Powerful People. The purpose of this podcast is to share ideas and stimulate discussion, and it does not constitute professional advice of any kind. If such advice is needed, the services of a competent professional should be sought. The speakers, host, and Jenoir International Incorporated are not to be held responsible for any use, misuse, or reuse of the content. Enjoy the show. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Jenoir Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Christian. Today, Dirk and I are very excited to bring on another amazing guest onto the channel for a very exciting conversation on the important topic of energizing leadership. This is very practical, very helpful information, so I encourage you, this is part one of a two-part series. Listen to both parts, join the conversation, let us know what you're thinking. But without anything further said right now, let's dive into part one. I'll introduce our guest and we'll get started. Hope you enjoy. Today, we are so thrilled to be joined by Geardo Chiaia. Gerardo is an accomplished leader who is well known beyond his industry for his ability to energize and motivate people while achieving outstanding results. In fact, Gerardo is featured as an outstanding leader in the best-selling leadership book, Leading to Greatness. You'll definitely want to check that out. Gerardo is currently serving as the CEO of Logoplaste, a world-leading and highly innovative plastic packaging manufacturer based in Portugal. With well over 20 years of global leadership experience, Gerardo has a wealth of knowledge to share. We are also joined, of course, by our resident leadership expert, Dirk, but for now, Gerardo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christian and Dirk, for having me in your podcast. It's an honor for me to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful, and we're so glad to have you. But before we dive into our leadership discussion, Gerardo, could you please tell us and our listeners a bit more about your background and your journey in the plastics industry, leading up to your role now as CEO of Logoplaste?
Sure, Christian. Thank you. I have an engineering background and hold an MBA from Sacred Heart University. I started at Husky Injection Molding Systems in 1994, a famous Canadian company making injection packaging equipment for the food and beverage industry. I studied as a service technician and through the years had progressive leadership roles in various areas of the company, from operations, manufacturing, sales, marketing, and engineering. I led as well the beverage packaging business as a president. And in 2018, I decided to change and join Logoplaste, a global leading manufacturing of rigid plastic packaging containers, as a CEO. And so Logoplaste, a little bit of Logoplaste publicity doesn't hurt. So Logoplaste has more than 70 plants around the world and has the particularity to manufacture the rigid packaging in the premise of our customers, which is the so-called wall-to-wall model, reducing transport, secondary packaging, and waste, making sustainable business model. So I wanted to make sure you have that. And I also had the opportunity to live abroad in France for 3 years and in China, Shanghai, for 5 years.
Wow, that is quite the international experience. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I know during some of that time, you also worked with Dirk.
I did work with Dirk, and I had the pleasure, first as a friend and a professional, to work with Dirk, which I have a lot of respect for him. Not because he's on the podcast, but because it's true.
Well, thank you for clarifying for our listeners. I'm sure that they're glad to hear that as well, just as I am. So since you two have this history, Dirk, and this has become a theme, why don't I let you take the lead on asking some questions here, then I'll come back at the end to close.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. And Gerardo, it's just super exciting to have you on the podcast. We work together on a lot of different things and around the world, and so that really has given me the opportunity to see you in action as a leader firsthand, but also talk to people who worked for you and with whom I had conversations about your leadership. And so I've really seen and heard firsthand the impact you've had on people and what you're known for, and really what I've observed and experienced, and that sets you apart, and in my view, is your ability to energize and motivate your teams. And that's so important. Like, working for a boss who energizes you can make the difference between a rewarding and, quite frankly, a miserable work experience. And so, Gerardo, this is what we want to talk about today, for you to share some of your strategies for creating an energizing leadership environment, especially in a competitive industry and competitive environment where you cannot compromise performance. So how do you do that? How do you energize, and how do you help your people to perform at their best?
Thank you, Dirk. First, I always said to whoever wants to hear from me that your boss is the person that makes your quality of life. It's clearly the one that that gets you higher or low. So that's very, very important. So first and foremost, a leader needs to be authentic and transparent. And so, as an example, if your English is not perfect and you have accent, the ones that have most probably, you need to be transparent. You need to laugh about it. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to be a different person. So your team needs to know also what you expect from them. And what they can expect from you in complete transparency. This is very, very important. First, you need to lead by examples. You need to demonstrate enthusiasm and stronger work ethics, so to inspire your team. Second, very important is to keep the open lines of communications always open at every level. Listen and always provide constructive feedback. I never go to bed if I have not answered everyone that reach out to me during the day, either by emails or messages, or if you don't have the answer, at least you say that you acknowledge that you receive it and you will get back to them. Third, what I think is important to make sure that they understand, or people understand, what you expect and what they can expect is to set clear goals and don't take always the decisions. You must trust your team and allow them to make, I would say, some mistake. When I say some, I would put it into bracket, obviously. And finally, I think it's to lead with empathy, show understanding and compassion towards your team members. I think that is very important.
Yeah. So Gerardo, that's a really fantastic way to get us into it. And I mean, I like that point about transparency. I do work a lot with people from outside of North America who work in American or North American companies, and that sometimes can be difficult. You're not maybe able to express yourself in the same way an American leader can, especially an American sales guy, right? Is hard to compete with. But I want to really emphasize it. Don't try to be like them. Be yourself. And again, this is something that I've seen you do, and I've seen you rise to a leadership position in a North American company, coming from Europe, and so that just shows how the thing that you say is something you have lived and something that you have translated into real accomplishment. And so we come back to this relationship aspect. You know, there's really some, and I very much believe that leadership really is about two things. It's about results and it is about relationships. You cannot have one without the other. And if you can make those two aspects work, that is the remarkable accomplishment. And so I want to really keep pushing that point a little bit with you. And so can you just share a few more insights how you manage the tension between performance pressure on the one hand and positive relationships on the other hand? How do you do that?
Yeah, first, I 100% agree with you, Dirk. What I learned is that if you are authentic and if you truly care about people, they know and understand when the times are difficult. You don't need to tell them, right? So that's very important. And they understand when it comes to the points where we need to swarm together. I think it's easy to keep enthusiasm when everything goes well, right? So it's the easiest way, but you need to have the same enthusiasm and the positivity in difficult time. Your team needs to know that there is a light outside of the tunnel, but also how you need to get there, right? So what are the steps that needs to happen? And it's amazing what the team can do to turn around the situation if you empower them. And so that's what I learned.
Yeah, and Gerardo, again, it's on the one hand the empowerment. You give people the responsibility to do the thing, but as a leader, you also have the plan. As you said, you outline the steps how to get there. You're not just saying, "Hey, go do this impossible thing," and people feel on their own. It's always those two things. It's empowerment on the one hand, but then outlining a clear plan how to get there on the others. And so if we take it from there a step further, and that's the point of values. And I've heard you talk about values, and values do play a crucial role in leadership. And so I would like you to share some of the core values that drive your leadership style, and then what you do to make sure that those values are lived throughout your organization. And now as a CEO, you really are the chief values officer, if you will, right? You have the responsibility for your team, but you have the responsibility for the enterprise as a whole.
Yeah, I think when you say the chief value officer is completely right? As a CEO, you have to stand there. I think for me, respect, transparency, and honesty are the one. You need to live these values and act on people who doesn't display them. And in some case, unfortunately, it means to let go people who do not live them every day, even if they have unique skills that you desperately needed, right? So it is tough, and especially now where finding talent is a challenge. I think that there is no compromise on that. And also, as a CEO, you need to take responsibility of your mistake. I think when you put those values in front of that, you have to be humble enough to understand that you make mistakes like everybody else. But when you make mistakes, you also have to apologize to your team. And unfortunately, it happened often to me. So, but it's very important, very important.
Yeah, and again, Gerardo, if I listen to you here, sometimes the topic of values is a little bit, let's say, a bit squishy. I mean, there are things that everybody agrees with, but when you talked about respect, transparency, and honesty, that includes the honesty to say things are not working out, right? Or respect is not there, so it can be it's not just a cheerleading for the values, but it's really making tough decisions based on values, and so I think that's a really important takeaway here as well. Would like to stick with the theme of strength. Again, your strength clearly is energizing people, motivating people, but at the same time making hard decisions if they have to be made. And so building on your strength is often a key aspect of successful leadership. And so want to ask you one more time, what strengths do you believe have contributed most to your success, and how have you leveraged them in previous roles, right? Not all of our listeners are CEOs as you are. I know some actually do aspire to that role, and I actually work with some recently appointed CEOs right now. But let's take it maybe a level below that. You have had a fantastic career as a senior sales leader, international sales leader. So based on that, but you always reminded me that you started as a service technician, and this is where you started us out today. And I certainly, we go back long enough that I remember that. So what are those strengths, not just in your current role, but if you really look over your career?
I think, also as a company, we often look at, when we look at talent developments, what are the strengths that you want, or the capabilities that you want your team or talents to have. I think the one, it comes down to me, I think, and also very important with the current market challenges, it comes down to perseverance and resilience. Those two are, for me, very important, also to lead into troubled times. I remember in China, I remember this episode very, very well. We went to meet the customers that we lost for service issues that we created, and my team didn't want me to go with them, as they were afraid that the customer would be very tough and would never recover the situation. So first of all, I told them that the customers had the right to be difficult with the problems we created. So we successfully took an appointment with the customers, and we went there with all my team. I think you remember Calvin Pang and John Zong were with me at the time. So we arrived at the receptions, and the lady that was at the receptions put us into a small meeting room. I think it was 9 a.m. in the morning, and we stayed there until 7 p.m. In the evening, with my team being, obviously furious through the days and so on. And so around 7 p.m., we were informed that the owner left the office and could not meet us. And so again, big drama with my teams. We should not continue here and so on. So, but I tried to calm them down and remind them how furious the customers may have been because of the issue we created again. And I asked them to set up another appointment, which we went again. We sat at the same meeting room again, but this time I think we waited 6 hours before we successfully received him. We didn't talk. We didn't say any word. He talked for 30 minutes and yelled, obviously. But that was the first entry point, and we went multiple times until one day he received us immediately instead of let us wait. And after 12 months, I think less than 12 months, we won the largest order for Husky in China we ever had. And so I can tell you, you can talk to the team how perseverant we have been, but that shows that you should not give up, and you should always continue to believe, to be perseverant. And as a CEO, you will have so many setbacks, so many challenges. Your day is filled by challenges when you wake up to the end of the day. And so if you don't have the perseverance and the resilience, I think you should choose another job.
Yeah, Gerardo, perseverance and resilience. So let's underline that. And you asked me whether I remember your time in Shanghai, and Gerardo, boy, do I ever. I remember your first day in Shanghai. We went there together, and I remember when you met the team and you introduced yourself to the team. And it's like yesterday. You said, there was an Italian who had come to China before. His name was Marco Polo, and here I am. And it was just amazing, right, how you managed that. I saw this. I mean, we did some leadership development work together in China, and I remember doing the seminar. Not easy, right, to get those people to participate, but it was just amazing how you walked in there and really, with your opening comments in a few seconds, really won the team over there. But then I remember this story very much too, because Calvin and John talked to me about it, and waiting there very humbly, waiting for the customer. But this is what it took. So I think it's really a great story that really exemplifies many of the things we're doing here. And you going with them. You talked about being a role model earlier, right? You sat there with them. And you had many other things to do, but you prioritized that customer, and you showed your team really what it takes. So truly a great story.
All right, everyone, on that note, with that amazing story, I think this is a perfect place to pause. Just a beautiful illustration from Gerardo highlighting some of his points about values and strengths, resilience and perseverance. This has been a great part one, as I said, to a two-part series. So we hope that you come back next time. In the following episode, we'll have part two, and we're going to shift gears a bit. Dirk and Gerardo are going to get into topics like business management in the midst of technological innovation. We're going to be talking about sustainability. Gerardo is going to share his experience in the plastics industry. But of course, we're going to pull out some highlights, some information, some wisdom for leadership wherever you are, whatever level you are, where you want to be. So I encourage you, come back next time. It's going to be good. See you then.